Hey there. I wanted to come on and share a reflection that I have that came about after attending Easter service yesterday. And I want to preface it with it was a beautiful service. The services are always beautiful, and I feel like saying I by no means mean any disrespect to the church or the pastor. I feel like I need to put in that disclaimer, and at the same time I question myself if I do need to put in a disclaimer. So, I don't know. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Yeah. Okay, so as I'm reflecting back on it, again, it was a beautiful service. I absolutely appreciate the community of the church and the congregation and members coming together with the intention and the focus on a divine purpose and connection. And that's really grounding and uplifting and expanding at the same time. And yesterday, as I reflect on the service, I saw very clearly how guilt and shame were immediately built into the sermon. And that is really what I want to bring awareness to, is there is such a programming, not just in the churches, religion. It's in everything. Programming in our lineages, programming in society of guilt and shame. That's like how, and Brene Brown, if you've ever read any of her books, listen to any of her, she has programs on, I think maybe Showtime or HBO or something like that. She does an extremely excellent job of explaining guilt and shame and how it's built into things and into our programming. I would highly recommend her books. So anyway, before I talk about the sermon, I want to go back about 12 years when I had first learned about healing touch and energy healing, because that was my soul. My soul was coming online. My soul was really integrating. My soul was really waking up at that time and leading me to one of my gifts here in this earth carnation, in this realm, in this density. And as I learned about healing touch and learned how it's really based in the energy of love, which is the universal energy of everything, that's my perception. That's how I've come to know universal energy is really based, it's love. And we either choose to connect to it or we don't at any given time. A little bit besides the point. So anyway, probably a lot of things are beside the point that I talk about. But so I had learned about that and I wanted to share it. And I remember going to my pastor at the time and saying, hey, I've learned about this. I would love to teach others. I feel like my church family is the first place where I wanted to start sharing it, or one of the first places I wanted to start sharing it, because it felt like such a loving, supportive environment. And here's how I can contribute to that, right? And so as the pastor was asking me questions about healing touch, which, by the way, the program that I've learned through was developed by specifically a rocket scientist who had put a lot of research into it, and it's carried out through nursing modalities and evidence-based practice. So, I mean, I had that backing me up. But then he asked me, well, how is it Christian? How is healing touch Christian? And I've had so much more practice in speaking to this now, but back then, the way I was able, the language I had to verbalize that was, well, Jesus was love. Jesus taught love, and healing touch is love, and this is how we can share the love. And I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about the universal energy of love. This is how we can help others to heal and grow. And he responded by asking me if I understood or if I'd ever heard of the phrase missing the mark, and went on to explain to me what it means to miss the mark. Like, yeah, my intentions with this are good, but I'm missing the mark. And then I ended up joining a Bible study group and all of that, and never was allowed to bring healing touch into the church. And so there's that, right? But in the meantime, I've learned about a lot of other things too. I've read the Bible several times. I've listened to it several times. I use it very much as a grounding tool, and I think there's so many good activations and expansions that you get from reading the Bible. And at the same time, I think that guilting and shaming others into not using their gifts and sharing their gifts because they're missing the mark according to an interpretation is missing the mark. So anyway, I'm getting a little bit off subject, a little bit of a tangent there. So going back to the church service yesterday, the pastor started out immediately from the start of guilting and shaming, and then went into what was actually a very beautiful message of Christianity and Jesus's love and renewal and continued renewal and the story of Easter and everything. But it started with guilt and shame. So the pastor started out talking about how people are these days are saying that Christianity's dead and it's out of touch and all of that. So then immediately, if you've had any of those thoughts, this is how humans work, right? If somebody tells you that people are saying this, people are saying this, people are saying this, you automatically think to yourself, have I said that recently? I haven't done that recently. And if for any reason you have, or have even had a thought close to that, then you immediately feel guilty, right? So he did a good job of working that up. And then he went on to say, and things that you see in social media, all this new religion and new stuff and new stuff and new stuff, and they've got this and that and this and that, and how they're basically missing the mark. And so there was that. So then you feel ashamed if you were actually listening to any of those things on social media that he was alluding to. So right away we have guilt and shame. But what is not embedded into the service, and I think it's extremely intentional that it's not embedded into the service, so with the purpose of keeping people kind of asleep, not in their sovereignty, was that those things that you're seeing and hearing on social media about religion and other new age philosophies or whatever, none of that is new, and is actually dates back pre-Christianity, and is actually a really good expansion on a lot of the information that Christianity is based on, and thus extremely missing the mark, while at the same time guilting and shaming the congregation into listening to a message that honestly could have stood on its own, because it's a beautiful message. The story of Easter, it's not just the story. I mean, I say story because it is explaining the events, but I don't mean story like it didn't happen in real life, because it absolutely is true, right? Jesus ascended just like Buddha ascended and all the other ascended masters and Saint Germain and all of this. So let me bring it back to another point here. So I brought up the word sovereignty, and I think where we are extremely missing the mark these days is that with organized religion, there's a lot of do as you're told, don't do as, well, let me see if I can word it a different way. here's what we believe as a group, and you don't get to contribute your gift to it if it doesn't, your God-given gift, if it doesn't fit into what the group think says. So sovereignty is really understanding that, yes, you are part of God, you are part of Source, you are that soul, and you have the free will to choose to embody your soul in sovereignty and to live out that expression, and you have the free will to not do that. Where guilt and shame comes in is it keeps you from using your free will to embody that sovereignty, if especially your sovereignty doesn't fit in with what the programming wants to see expressed, if that makes sense. So all of this really, I guess, is kind of introducing you, if you weren't aware of it, to the concept of sovereignty and how it relates to free will. It's not the same thing. And to bring awareness to how, bring awareness to the human side of religion, right? God's not shaming and blaming us. Yes, we live in a world of the garden of good and evil, where it's the 3D reality of dualistic good, bad, right, wrong, right? And the way you ascend that, the way you follow in Jesus's steps, is to choose love versus being mixed up in the good, the bad, the right, the wrong. I mean, yes, he absolutely is the path to that. But be aware of how humans are spinning it to their own agendas. I hope that makes sense. And I will step down off my soapbox now. Practice discernment. Be in your sovereignty and practice discernment. And connect to God yourself. You don't need to go through somebody to do that. It's great if you feel supported when that's happening. That's a really good way to discern it. If you're feeling supported and love and open and expanded when you are listening to what somebody's saying versus contracted and guilty and shameful, then that's probably not supporting your sovereignty, and it's not supporting the true message of divine will and God. Sorry, I thought I was going to wrap it up, but another thing too that I think fits in here is how a lot of the organized religion that I have studied really cuts out the divine feminine. And again, I think it's on purpose, and just have awareness of that. There's a lot of divine masculine, a lot of focus on divine masculine, and they're cutting out the divine feminine is cut out. Oh gosh, what more was coming there? So have that awareness, and I think as you hold that awareness, you will start to see things come into play that will enlighten you to the divine feminine side of it. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Take care, guys. Bye.